So George from OnePilot is our next speaker, carrying on the theme of customer service, and now how you're going to find the people to do all this stuff. So welcome, George.
Are we working? Oh, very loud. How's everyone doing? Few nods. Awesome.
Welcome, George. How's it going?
It's good. It's been refreshing to come to an event where it's actually lots of nuggets. I'm sure we've all been to events before. Everyone's pretending it's good and it's not. I think this has actually been
I hope
decent.
nobody's doing that today.
Everyone I spoke to out there echoed what I'm saying. So good to be at a good event for a change. But yeah, so good.
So George, do you want to introduce yourself and how OnePilot is the perfect accompanying to Gorgeous? And then tell us about who you are and what you do.
We're trying to be perfect. Not there yet. Yes, I'm George. I did up the UK for a tech company called OnePilot. We outsource customer care, which is like the least sexiest talking point ever, like outsourcing customer support. It hopefully will be an interesting 10 to 15 minutes, boring topic, but ultimately we've built a tech approach quite comparable to Uber. So if you think the Uber model for customer support agents, we've built something that for support agents who are locally native. And I hate using that example because Uber has a horrendous reputation and all that stuff. But ultimately my background is e-commerce, so I fell into MarTech 6 years ago, a company called Brand Ambassador, so advocacy marketing, influencer marketing, creative management, that type of thing. And then I joined the business 6 months ago to lead up our UK growth.
Brilliant. Have you got slides?
I have.
Okay.
Awesome. So I guess just to dive a bit deeper into what is OnePilot and ultimately how we're different, because outsourcing BPOs has existed forever. Our kind of founder stories, we had 5 founders across VCs working in e-commerce, early hires at Bolt, Voy, and so forth, all of which just shared a common pain that when building a support team or outsourcing, it's just a real pain in the arse, essentially. And they felt like there was a slight gap. So our model is very tech-driven. So that's broken into 2 areas. On the help desks, i.e. Gorgeous, and the hiring, training, and implementation of agents. So the first area is we've built our own LMS. So we can launch...
Which is a LMS is a...
Learning Management Systems, apologies. So ultimately, we can get a experienced agent up and running for pretty much any e-commerce business in days. I meet with brands who take months. It's just because we've spent a lot of time on our tech to get agents up and running. We got 9,000 applications in the last 12 months for agents. We only have 700 freelancers working for us, so we can basically be very selective and cherry pick who we think is going to be a good agent for the brands that we're working for. The second side of the tech is, and good segue after the previous talk, is with Gorgeous. So we integrate into all the main help desks. Gorgeous is our favorite, and I'm not just saying that because Johan's here today. They are laser focused on e-commerce, which is our play as an outsourcer. We integrate into Gorgeous, which means as a tech-focused approach to outsourcing, we can pull certain things. I've actually got a couple of slides I'll jump to, but ultimately we can take lots of shortcuts. If you take the typical process for an agent answering tickets, you'll spend weeks hiring, training, some will churn, because let's be honest, it's a really hard job working in customer support and success. So ultimately, we're doing all the manual boring, let's go check their knowledge base, the FAQs, and then we're pulling in all of that information for them. So, for example, voila. So, Shopify subscription is a big part of our business. I've blurred it out so you can't see the brand, but ultimately, want to cancel my subscription. I'm sure we've all been here. Big fan of a company called Huel. I remember my first experience of subscribing. Instead of having that, oh, I've got too much and needing to cancel, proactively, hey, we think you've got too much, I need to cancel. We all remember those top examples of customer service. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but ultimately, a ticket comes in, someone wants to cancel. Instead of going to the back office and researching and checking, our AI and integration with Gorgeous is going to take the previous conversations, what's the most likely solution, and have those pre-built macros ready to go. So that basically means instead of spending 5-10 minutes going, okay, cool, what's the solution here? We're now out using the human time when necessary and basically leveraging tech to get to that endpoint, if that makes sense. But I hope that gives an idea on what we're doing. But
And then just bring it back to the people, because when George started telling me about the people, the locally native agents, how much they pay them.
Cool mums.
Oh, you must have loads of really nice mums working for you. And he said, we do. So tell them about the really nice mums and young people.
And young people, yeah. So our model's interesting because we only take on people with 2 years experience in support, and because it's a really, I guess, flexible model for agents. Like they pick and choose their hours. I think you left a slide there so they can decide when they work, how they work, the types of channels. As a brand, you also do this. You say, hey, OnePilot, can you handle tickets during evenings, weekends, whatever it could be. But from a agent standpoint, we spent a lot of time trying to match them up. So like I said, last year we had 9,000 people apply. Basically means we can be really selective on having people like the right demographics, the right markets. These are all locally native agents as well. So in like the supplements, which we've got a lot of, we'll have people who understand that space. We haven't got to reinvent the wheel and retrain people within that area. Yeah, we have a lot of young, fun people, nice mums. It's just depending on the brand, but we try and match it as close as possible.
And how do, in terms of brands accessing OnePilot, particularly because, there's 2 options for brands, there's 3 options. Do your own customer service, do it all with OnePilot the whole time, or then you were saying actually most brands access us, or many do, during peak periods.
Yeah, we've got use cases where we do all tickets, but the majority is peak periods. So we're speaking with a lot of customers, so potential customers at the moment, where they're doing maybe 10,000 tickets a month. Come Q4, it's 4 or 5x. Like, how do you fill that gap? Like tech, sure, it's going to get you somewhere. I've spoken to people here today that go and hire temps. I'm sure we've all done that or familiar with it. But then you have to let them go. You spend a lot of time hiring, training. It could be like an entire project, depending on the size of the business. Our tech basically allows it to be like plug and play. So, main use case, like those peak periods, as opposed to we need to take all of your customer success. Most brands like to use it as like a buffer, let's say.
And can you share the pricing and how it works for brands from an efficiency point of view?
I can. I believe it's £200 a month and £2 a ticket. Very, sales hat on here. But yeah, I mean, we've built a compelling use case on it being more cost effective than internal, mainly because that is the only cost. We hire the training, we build the knowledge base, we find and train all the agents, supported by our tech. There is obviously an argument when you go offshore to a certain extent, but then are they going to solve as many tickets? There's potentially that language barrier as well. Yeah, from a pricing point of view, and it's also plug and play flexible. So that pricing I discussed, brands can turn it on for 2 months, turn it off, and we can do that just because of how quickly we can get brands up and running, basically.
Amazing. Do you have any more slides? Because these slides went in.
Because when I talk about this, like I said, customer support it's not the sexiest thing, especially outsourcing. It can be a little bit of a dirty word, but I think sometimes they can just be like nice visuals. But when we look at alternatives, as we mentioned with like customer support, you think, is it flexible? Can you scale it for these peak periods? Is it 24/7? And what's the quality like? And obviously, we have to tick them all for OnePilot, but that kind of the gap and why we went to market 2 years ago. We just felt like there wasn't, I guess, an outsource approach that was really tech-driven, and I think everything is just so outdated in the way offshore, nearshore outsources work. So that is ultimately the gap we're trying to fill.
Brilliant. E-commerce. Thank you, George. George is also going to be around if anyone wants to talk to George more about that scalable solution. But thank you, George.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, guys.